Welcome back, everyone, to the seasonal wrap-up show. Today, we are finally going to start the winter 2023 season, even though it's already September 6th by the time I'm getting to this. I'm going to catch up eventually. But in any case, as you can see, I've already finished a lot of movies from this year and one TV series. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get into the list. We got 44 shows from the winter season. If you've been around, you know how this works. These 8 at the end are going to be like our little end cap shows that we end each video with. And the other 36 are going to be random. So let's head on over to the random number generator and see what our first pick is. It is 31, which is Isekai Ojisan. Okay, I know this one had a ton of production issues and kept getting pushed back season after season. So let's see if it was worth it. So I'm honestly feeling kind of conflicted about this one. I got 9 episodes into Uncle from Another World. And by that point, it was basically like, why don't I finish it? But I realized something about this series that we'll get to in a bit. First, I do want to say, it is funny. On an occasional basis. I would say it has a lot of, really, poignant moments of comedy, really peak comedy, I think episode 8 where they suddenly just turn into dragons and then are just dragons for a little bit. That was fucking hilarious. It has a very intimate knowledge of isekai tropes and anime tropes in general, and is able to turn those into really interesting subversive bits of comedy, when we find out that the uncle has no idea what a tsundere is, because he got isekai'd in 2000 before Fate Stay Night came along and a bunch of other popular tsundere anime came along. So that was it. So him not recognizing that the elf girl was a tsundere and just thought that she was genuinely being mean to him. That was funny for the first episode. And then by the second episode, I realized, we're going to have to deal with this for the whole series. This joke is going to exist for the entire series, and it's probably not going to have any good payoff. Because, we know from at the end, when he leaves, when he comes back to the real world at the beginning, we know that he still thinks that she hates him and doesn't know what a tsundere is. So I know that plotline doesn't have the ending that I would like to it. And I think that's my problem with the series overall is I would be watching these flashback sequences where he is in the isekai world, and I would go, you know what? This is a decent isekai world. I'm kind of a fan of it. It's not super outstanding or groundbreaking or anything. It's kind of generic, but you know what? It's hitting all the right check boxes for me. On the whole, it's well produced. The isekai segments, I should say, with some occasional CG bullshit, but it's not super noticeable, so it's fine. And in general, I'm if this was taken seriously, this would be a pretty solid, just okay isekai action-adventure series. But it's not, and then, as I'm going on, I'm, invested in, this story, and then at some point, the show does something, and I go, all right, none of this matters. It's all going to, either half the time he just wipes someone's memory to get rid of everything, or he just completely abandons everyone and just walks off on his own because it doesn't matter. And I get that that's his character. And he's a really well realized character. It's just not a character I particularly care about. I really do not enjoy the uncle. Now, like, there's some nice moments of comedy here and there, but like as a character, I don't particularly care for him. I'm also not really like into like, for as much as I do this bullshit, I'm not really into like otaku characters. I'm not into that type of character in media. Again, as you can see behind me, pot calling the kettle black with all the stupid anime bullshit I collect, but I just never vibe with those kind of characters. So I think really one of the few instances where I did vibe with that kind of character is Marin in Dress Up Darling. Probably because it's a cute girl. But yeah, I've spent a lot of this watching this show going, I kind of wish the isekai story was the main story, instead of this being like a comedic retelling of his isekai adventures. And again, the comedy was decently solid. I would get like a solid like 4 or 5 chuckles out of every episode, but I don't think that's enough, in my opinion. Because there's also a lot of moments where I was just like, oh, you made that joke again. Awesome. Yeah, I'm just not super vibing with this one, despite the fact that it is decently well produced on the whole. There is, especially like in the very beginning, like some of the opening shots, I was like, wow, this show is ugly. What the fuck happened? But then as it got a little bit more in and it started like, the comedic beats started hitting a little harder and we got to the isekai world, like it started looking a lot better. Also, it is unfair how hot the girls are in this show. Every single fucking one of them. Oh my god. These are some of the hottest characters in all of anime. Like, the elf girl, fucking, that is waifu tier character design. Like, holy shit. I thought I saw like a figure of her on sale for like $20 when I was just searching through like pictures of her. If that's true, I'm ordering that like fucking immediately because god fucking damn hot. I realize I'm even more pot calling the kettle black now with all that otaku not vibing bullshit that I said earlier. I'll address that on my own at some point. But holy shit, the girls are hot in this. The real world girl, Fujiya-san, really great. I did like her like relationship with the main character as well, where it was like she thought that she was like a cool childhood friend with him, but she was actually kind of a bully to him half the time. Kind of fits in with that the not getting the tsundere trope thing. That was kind of funny. The ice clad girl, also super fucking hot. Gee, I'm not joking, these are some of the hottest girls I've seen in anime. Holy shit. Which makes it all the more disappointing when their like plot lines are just end up as jokes. And not even good jokes. They're just kind of like, heh. I guess that was kind of funny. So yeah. Like, I understand that that's not the point of this show. I understand that the point is for it to be kind of farcical. But I just didn't I just didn't like it, I guess. I'm more Konosuba, I guess, than Uncle from Another World. I'm not sure what the difference is between those, but I'm sure there is. Anyway, let's move on. Alright, unfortunately, Isekai Ojisan comes off the list. And also, I just double checked all of these shows earlier, and apparently Flagleas has no official any subs yet. Like, not even official subs, like any subs at all. So, taking that off the list too, because I just can't watch it. Anyway, that means we're cranking this down by 2 now. Nope, go down. And let's see what we roll next. 24. What is that? Mononogatari. I don't know what this is. It's probably fantasy. Let's find out. Oh boy, I sure do love generic-ass yokai action anime with awful animation. That's certainly what I was looking forward to. Yeah. Got about halfway through the first episode of Mononogatari. It's generic and lame. And also the art is terrible. The character designs are pretty mediocre. They stand out from the background horribly. It has one little cool bit of animation where, like, the ceiling animation on the Tsukumogami is pretty cool. Where I was like, oh, that was nice. Why doesn't the rest of the show look like this? Did they spend all of their talent on that single sequence? Main character's basic bitch. Revenge. Can't get over the past. Whatever. Yeah, this show is lame. I'm not surprised I haven't seen anyone talk about it ever. So let's move on. Alright, Mononogatari is off the list. Let's figure out what we're watching next. It is 19. Revenger. I have no clue what this is. I guess we're about to find out. Alright, I just finished all of Revenger, surprisingly. Even more surprisingly, well, in some ways surprisingly, not so much other ways, this is apparently the latest Gen Urobuchi anime. Obviously, Gen Urobuchi, most known for Madoka Magica, Fate Zero, the Psycho Pass, the nihilism tragedy shows. Well, actually, not, you could debate on the nihilism thing a lot with Urobuchi, but apparently there was a lot of discussion about this show in regards to it not feeling like an Urobuchi show. And on a superficial level, I would agree. On a very superficial level, I would agree with that. It doesn't have like a bunch of like dark twists to it. It doesn't have the... It's not uber gory and tragic. With something like Fate Zero. But in a lot of other ways, it is oh so very Gen Urobuchi. It's got the very specific pretentious notes that Urobuchi has in terms of ideas like hypocrisy and authority and purpose. It's still kind of gory in some ways, or not gore. Really, not a lot of Urobuchi shows are gory. Most of them are. Only Psycho Pass is probably the goriest one. Although I don't remember. I didn't see the end of Gargantia, or whatever that one was. More brutal, I guess, would be how I would describe the action in Urobuchi stuff. And this show is definitely brutal. There's a lot of really cool kills in this. Like, a lot of the kills, I'm just like, damn, that was fucking cool. The action, well, while we're on that subject, I would say this is a competent action series. That is what this is. It's got not a lot of bullshit, there is a little bit of stupid shit in there that makes me go, well, what the fuck was the point of that? Or why the fuck did you do that? That's stupid. But there's not a lot of that. So it made for a very not unpleasant watch. I mean, I got through the whole show. And, like, it's competently paced, competently written. And yet, there's also something about it that feels a little hollow. Especially in the end. And I don't know if that was the point or not. Maybe I'm giving Urobuchi too much credit. In that, in the end, it's still a little tragic and a little nihilistic, but in a much more subdued way than we're used to with Urobuchi. Now, granted, I haven't finished all of his I haven't really watched anything from Urobuchi between what came first, Gargantia or Psycho-Pass? I think Psycho-Pass came first, and then Gargantia, and then the rough outline of All Noah's Hero that he did. And then he did that weird puppet show thing that I still need to watch because I've heard it's awesome. And then he did Obsolete, which was this really shitty YouTube series that I only watched a couple minutes of because it looked terrible. And then he did Bubble, which I watched 20 minutes of. Here's I don't consider Bubble to be an Urobuchi anime. I consider that to be a Netflix anime because that is not a show where Urobuchi said, "I want to write this movie." That is a movie with Tetsuro Araki directing it, Gen Urobuchi writing it, Tsugumi Obata of the Death Note manga doing the character designs, and Hiroyuki Sawano doing the score. Bubble is not an Urobuchi anime. Bubble is an anime that Netflix decided to make because they wanted to capitalize on these really big names. So I don't feel like Bubble is helpful in discussing Gen Urobuchi's catalog. So ironically, I think Obsolete would probably be better. But I didn't watch all of it. I barely watched any of it because it looked like ass. But yeah, it definitely feels like Urobuchi is over his tragic, dark, edgy phase. Now, to be fair, there is still some tragic, dark, edgy stuff in it, in Revenger. The way it frames drug addiction and other, criminal activities in this, some violent activities in this. It does have a nice little bit of edge to it. Whereas, I didn't mention this, I forgot to mention this when I was talking about Mononogatari, but, literally the first, 30 seconds of that show literally just had me shouting, "Ooh, edgy!" It was a very childish kind of edgy. Urobuchi's edgy is a lot more fun. It's a lot more, "Oh, that was fucking edgy. I like that." But yeah, it's still got that in it. I appreciated his use of Neo for a very demented moe relief to this series, as this being this little androgynous Shota kid. Probably my favorite character in the series, just aesthetically and just because Shota's the only one who seems to be having fun. Most of the other cast is just kind of dour or very serious. Not all the time, but most of the time. Raizo, our main character, is just It's like every episode or like every other episode, it's like, am I allowed to be happy? I'm like, oh my god, wife killer, you're fine. He didn't technically kill his wife, but like he killed his father-in-law, which caused his wife to die. Tragedy, tragic comedy ensues. This is very... See, that's a good way of describing it. Urobuchi is very Shakespearean tragedy. It is very classic tragedy. Like, oh, the fates have spun against me kind of stuff. And Revenger definitely falls into that category. So, is Revenger an Urobuchi anime? Yes, absolutely. Is it a good one? It's fine. Like, I didn't... Like, the characters on the whole were fine. But outside of Neo, there really wasn't any that I thought were particularly interesting. If they had delved a little bit... If Urobuchi had cut loose a little bit more and let himself have a few more pretentious monologues, I think we could have gotten some more interesting character moments. But we kind of didn't. The ending really took me by surprise, and like the main character just dies in the gutter because of a guy that he didn't kill. Finally, like letting this character have his like pithy emo ending. It was interesting, but it also, the last episode really highlighted the like, oh, that's it, I guess, nature of this show. Like, the last episode is like just big. The first half of it is just this big action spectacle. Not even that big of an action spectacle. Like, the action's good, but it's not gonna wow your pants off. It's not gonna do that. It's competent. I'd say it's above competent, actually. There are some good moments in it. But, like, on the whole, it felt too easy. Like, the good guys charge in, they don't lose anybody during the raid, and then they beat all the bad guys. And then that's it. And then they just go about their lives, and then Raizo gets stabbed by some rando. Some dude whose name literally means pawn. Which, like, I see the vision, Urobuchi. I see it. I see what you're going for. Just this very, like, oh, well, that's how life be, I guess. I think it could have been structured a little bit better so that it was more satisfying, but I get it. The bad guys really just kind of went out with a fucking whimper. Which, again, I think I understand what he was going for. In that he was basically just... This is the most earnest of... In certain ways, this is the most earnest of Urobuchi's work. No, not earnest. Earnest is the wrong word. This is the most forthrightly optimistic of Urobuchi's work in certain ways. Like, the good guys never really stray from their, like, righteous ideology. They keep that ideology up to the end. It gets challenged a little bit here and there, but not enough to make it interesting. And then they just kind of win. And the bad guys, like, do their monologues like, aha, but X, Y, and Z. And then the good guys are just like, no, you're bad. I'm gonna kill you now. In some ways it was interesting. In other ways it was very underwhelming. Which is very much how I feel about this show in general. I understand what it was going for. And in some ways it was entertaining, but on the whole, I am left with a feeling of, oh, that was it, huh? So, yeah, that's it, huh?
Alright, Revenger is complete.
We're going to scroll up here. And let's see. We're going to put it right in here. And you're getting a light 6. I honestly could go either way on this one. Like, it was good. It was fine. But, man, it could have been more. Anyway, I think we're going to do like 2 more randos. And then we'll jump to the end cap. So let's see what we roll next. What do we have left? 32 shows. Let's see what we get. 24. Play it cool, guys. I think this is probably some kind of like comedy show or whatever. Let's see how it do. So this show led with like this really detailed cut of like character animation. I was like, oh, is this gonna be one of those shows where it's like a Yamano Susume kind of thing, where it really like the animation is like the lead focus of it and like the art design and stuff like that. No. Nope. It was, from what I've seen so far, it's just that cut, because everything after that was butt fucking ugly. Composition's terrible. Everything's just kind of gray and boring looking. Character designs are super uninteresting looking. Not a fan of how this looks at all. The actual like meat of it is like some little like haha that was so quirky kind of funny thing. Like it got like a giggle out of it did get a giggle out of me like from the 3 minutes of it that I watched, but I'm not going to be able to watch a whole series of this, even though they're half episodes. It's 24 half episodes, and I couldn't even make it through one, so we're going to move on. Alright, Play It Cool Guys is off the list. Let's see what we roll next. It is a 10, which is Chillin' in My 30s after getting fired from the Demon King's army. Okay. That was something, I guess. Gotta hand it to them for just really fixating on the tits of the main girl. Gotta hand it to them there. They knew what the best part of this show was, and the camera was drawn to it. That was the most entertaining part of the show, especially like when they tried to be slick about it, but then you realize they were not being slick at all, and they just wanted to put the tits in the frame. That was funny. Otherwise, this show is boring as shit. The reveal that the main guy was not a demon at all and is actually just a normal human actively made the show less interesting. And then it just devolved into, oh, you're actually like super strong and like good at everything. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. This one's technically not an isekai, but it's certainly got the mechanics of one. And it's also not particularly good looking. The character designs are fine. Animation's really nothing to write home about. But the compositing is so fucking bad. Well, not all the time, but there are some shots where it's like two characters standing against the forest backdrop, and is so badly composited that you're just like, whoa! I've been watching anime too long. I successfully predicted a panty joke, and it made me groan so bad. I will admit, the thing that kept me going through this entire first episode was how much I could stare at the main girl's character design in this episode. I like the trad fantasy aesthetic. What can I say? And she got the big titties. What can I say?
let's move on.
Alright, chilling in my 30s. Can come off the list. Which means it is time now for our first end cap show. Delicious Party Precure. Decided to lead off with some Precure. Just to jump us in hot. Hopefully I like it. Let's go.
Alright, I just finished all of Delicious Party Precure. It took me a while. I think that took me about 3 weeks or so because I had some other stuff to do in the meantime. But well worth the wait. Really enjoyed that by the end of it. Admittedly, I was kind of in the later parts of the first half, I was a little lukewarm on it. Or actually, it was mostly in the more beginning episodes and then sporadically throughout. But that second half, especially the last quarter, really came through and made it something really cool to watch. So this is the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, fourth Precure series that I finished so far. The first one I finished was Hugto, and then Star Twinkle. I ended up dropping Healin' Good after 20 episodes. Just could not get through that. And then I finished Tropical Rouge before this one, and now Delicious Party. Outside of those, the only other Precure I've seen is I think I've seen about 2/3 of Futariwa. I still need to come back to that at some point. So I'm starting to become less of a Precure noob at this point. Although I do definitely need to go back and watch some more pre-Hugto stuff. Because it's mostly just back half of this, past 5 years of Precure that I'm familiar with. Past 6 years or so, I guess, at this point. But, yeah, really enjoyed that. This show reminded me why I've been really getting into just enjoying traditional magical girl shows. This show is so incredibly optimistic and heartwarming and fun and cheerful. It's such a great mood lifter, but it's also not pure fluff by any means. And I think it was really kind of genius to take for this season to be centered around food and how food brings people together, how it brightens people's lives, how people relate to food, the act consuming food, making food, enjoying food with other people. The first episode of this, actually, this might have had this of all the Precure that I've seen. This might have the strongest first episode that I've seen from any Precure so far. I'll have to go back and rewatch Hugto at this point because I can barely remember Hugto at this point. It's been 5 years at this point. But the first episode of Delicious Party was so damn good. It actually got me crying by the end of it because it really hammers on this idea of what food means to people, especially in relation in how our main character Yui sees food in relation to her grandmother who had passed away prior to the start of the series. And just the way that they talk about food and how food means things to people, it reminded me of my great aunt who, when I was younger, me and my cousin would spend every Friday we would go to our grandma's houses and spend the night, and we hang out with each other because our grandmas lived next door to each other. They were sisters and they just ended up living next door to each other. And so we would spend the nights over at their houses. And back when we were real young, his grandma, my great aunt, would have this, I don't know, it was basically a Swiss roll but in the form of an ice cream cake. I don't know if they still make it. I don't even know what it's called. But we would just have that all the time, when we were younger. And so, like, remembering that just brought back the memories of, like, my great aunt, who it's been about 13 years now, I think, since she passed away. So it really got me emotional. Really got me to think about what sharing food means, like, with other people, what enjoying food with other people means. And I just want to touch on this now. Like, there's this series has, like, the typical hallmarks of, like, these are the products you have to sell as a Precure series, like the mixer thing, the candle thing, all the different, like, animal accoutrement and stuff. I'm totally fine with that, and I thought they were all really fun and interesting. Like, the candle being like, a candle, like, to provide ambiance for a dinner. That's a really cool idea for a new weapon in this series. But the one that really stood out to me wasn't even like a weapon in the show. It wasn't something to power them up. It was this, like, every time a new Precure is introduced, like every time someone new becomes a new Precure, they get this, like, glass, this, like, wine glass. And it doesn't do anything. It's just a symbol of being brought into the Precure family, being brought into this group. And that just really, that symbolism really stuck with me for some reason as something that was really cool. Being both A, Italian, and B, raised Catholic, you can see how, like, the sharing, in the most stereotypical sense, you can see how I would find that very relatable. Having this, share your cup. I share my cup with you. It's something that I've basically grown up with. And so, on that level, it was very, I'm getting surprisingly emotional talking about this series. It was just, this show, I think, more so than any of the other Precure I've seen so far, except for, like, select moments in Star Twinkle, like, but overall, in terms of overall impact, like, this show really goes in for the, like, how the thematic ideas translate into emotional moments. And this show is really, really good at that. Portraying what food means to people, what it means to share food with other people. And I found that really interesting in how that relates to the villains, too. Like, as a side note, before I jump into that, as a side note, I posted this on Twitter a little while ago, but I mean this in, like, the most, like, I say this in, like, this is a good thing. It's very obvious that this show was written by a woman, who I believe it's Sawako Hirabayashi, I think. She's written a few episodes of, like, Kuroko no Basket. She did a few episodes of Love Live Nijigasaki. I think she did one episode of Healin' Good. And then she was series composition for Delicious Party. And I think it's with the villains that it really shows, like, oh, a woman wrote this. And I mean that in a good way, because the villains for this series are a young girl who was literally brainwashed into being a villain, and later on feels immense, like, guilt over not just, like, doing the things in the past, but also, like, breaking free from that, and, like, the emotions that she still has to deal with once she becomes a Precure, this Amane we're talking about, obviously, Cure Finale, and, like, the resentment that she feels towards the people who manipulated her. By the way, I think it's episode 33, the show straight up says, it's like, it's okay to not forgive your abuser. It's okay to not forgive someone who manipulated you. You just can't let that control your life, which fucking rock on. Great message. So that was the first villain. Second villain is just a male manipulator. He loves to get a rise out of people. He loves to push people's buttons in order to feel like superior to him. Third villain is a woman who is like deathly afraid of not being perfect because she thinks that if she's not perfect at everything, cooking in particular, that she won't have any value to other people, that she will lose everything. And then the last villain, the big bad at the end, is a guy who got, like, in his past, he thought he was going to inherit, like, immense power, and then it turned out later that he ended up having to share that power with someone else, and he saw that as a slight against himself, and so now he just steals whatever he can. He's the guy stealing all these recipes, stealing all the food from everyone so that he can have total control over it. So yeah, this was definitely written by a woman. And I mean that in a good way. Like, you really see the female perspective of this. This is definitely one of the most woke Precures that I've seen so far. And again, Precure in general is pretty woke. Like, Star Twinkle was about how immigrants are fine, actually, and you shouldn't be afraid of them. But this one, like, really, in terms of, like, gender dynamics, Delicious Party is pretty dang woke. Rock on. But yeah, I guess just in general, I really loved the cast for this series. There really wasn't anyone in this cast that I didn't like. There wasn't anyone where I was like, oh god, please get this character off screen. Like, even like the animal sidekicks who are like super hit and miss for me in terms of Precure series. I really enjoyed all the like mascot characters in this. Oh, that was another really cool thing about this series. This another like side theme in this series. We have Kome Kome, who is Yui's like mascot character, this little fox who turns into a fox girl, and slowly through the series, like, she, like, you can see her like aging. Like, she can, at first she's able to turn into a baby, then she can turn into a toddler, then she can turn into someone who's like 6 or 7 years old, and then she can turn into someone who's like closer to like a preteen kind of age. And there's this like theme throughout the series of like her growing up, her wanting to grow up like as quick as possible and being upset that she is a child. And then we have the idea of like, hey, it's okay to like, yeah, cool, that's awesome that you want to grow up, but like, don't force this stuff. Don't be too upset about stuff that you can't do at the moment, because it will come to you eventually. And that really came to the forefront in the movie, which is, what was it, Our Dreaming Lunch or whatever? Our Dreaming Kids Lunch or something, which was really fun. The first act-ish of that movie really hammered on the, oh, this is for like 5-year-olds kind of stuff. But once the story of it got moving, it was really dang fun. Really liked the movie for this. It was fun. But yeah, this, just in general, loved the characters for this series. I would say my favorite in terms of personality, I have in terms of Precure stuff, I always have a fondness for like the weirdos. Like in Healing Good, I forgot what, I think it was Himawari or whatever. I liked her. She was probably my favorite in terms of personality. And in this one, I think Ran might be my favorite, because she's a blogger, and unlike most anime that portray like bloggers and YouTuber stuff, this one actually kind of gets it. It kind of gets it in a way. Like, it's hard to describe. Like, I would have to go super in depth on it to get into the nitty gritty of it, but it like really gets the idea of like wanting to post your ideas to the world, and sometimes the consequences that come with that. But yeah, and also Ran is just like super bubbly and fucking weird as shit, and I love her. But Amane is also really good too. Amane definitely has the best character arc in this one, going from villain to Precure and struggling with her past as a villain as a result. Man, this show is so good. You know, when I went into this, I was thinking like I wasn't as like super hyped on it as I am like now talking about it, because like some of the episodic stuff doesn't quite hit. Like some of the, it's real. It's a Precure series. The episodic stuff's gonna be hit and miss sometimes, and like there were definitely a few big misses, I think, for me in this one, just based on like what tropes I tend to enjoy. I didn't think it was quite as the vibes weren't quite as solid on a moment to moment basis as something like Tropical Rouge Precure. But I think, like looking back on it now, the broad ideas that Dreamin' or Delicious Party does are definitely stronger. The overall characterization, I think, is pretty strong. I at least on par with Tropical Rouge. See, I'm trying to think of where we'll get to that later, but I'm trying to think of where to rate it. But yeah, the if you can run through the mid episodes, the good episodes and the great episodes are gonna be fucking great. And like you never really know which ones are gonna be you're gonna like, because a lot of the like just totally random episodic ones turned out to be like some of my favorites from this series. They were just really good, even when they're not plot related. Again, I made a whole fucking video about Pokemon, 75 minutes of Pokemon Journeys content, where I hammer on the fact that like, hey, the plot's not as important as the episodic stuff. And it's the same with Precure. If the episodic stuff is good, then the plot's gonna be tends to also be good and even better. And so yeah, Precure's fucking good, guys. I guess before we close, in terms of visuals, I do think this was definitely one of the more hit and miss kind of Precures. Again, like, I'm just comparing it to Tropical Rouge because that's the most recent one in my memory. It doesn't have quite the same consistency, and I don't think the peaks are quite as high as Tropical Rouge. But there are definitely some peaks, like the big action scenes where it really needs to hit. Oh, they fucking hit. Like they really play with the camera in some really interesting ways in this. Although I will say, when it starts to go hard, it does have a tendency to, I guess, like, the cuts happen a little too quickly. Like, the shots don't last quite long enough to really have as much impact as they could. They still have a lot of impact, but they could have been even better if, like, a shot had, like, 4 or 5 more frames in it. Not even, like, seconds. Like, maybe, like, a quarter second or a half second more visual information in it before it cuts to a different shot, and these things could have been fucking incredible. But yeah, action's really good. I really liked the creativity of the like generic enemy designs this time, of turning like cooking equipment into monsters. That was kind of fun. And playing with them in terms of like what kind of attacks they have, like this popcorn machine that just launches fireballs at random. And then there are just some of the fucking weird ones where one's just a shelf and it just shoots lasers out of the different cupboards in the shelf. That one was wild. But yeah, pretty creative villain design and monster designs. The main character designs in like their non-Precure forms are pretty safe, in my opinion. Like, they don't really they're not going to stand out in terms of, like, Precure designs. They're pretty mild, and there's nothing, like, wrong with that, but that's not really what I go for, I guess. Whereas, like, again, Tropical Rouge had some pretty out there ones. Like, Nanatsu had a really out there design in terms of Precures. Whoever the athletic one was, Cure Flamenco, I forgot what her character's name was in that. But yeah, the designs are solid. The Precure designs are also really solid. Oh, that was another thing I forgot to mention. Like, Cure Finale's, like, attack. One of her attacks, like, they just do some really cool stuff with, like, limited animation. It's not just straight Sakuga. They really, like, pick and choose which frames they want, and, like, the stuttery effect of it makes it look really fucking cool. I really thought that was cool, and it's definitely one of the more memorable cuts in terms of, like, the stock footage animation. And the transformations were pretty solid for this too. Not the most interesting that I've seen so far, but they're solid. They're good. I like them. Also found the music to be pretty good for this one. Although, again, I got introduced to this franchise through Precure that had Yuki Hayashi doing the soundtrack. You know, the My Hero Academia guy. So I was spoiled from jump with, like, Hugto and Star Twinkle's soundtracks. Those were so fucking good. And this one's still good. Not quite as good as those other two, but it really makes... I love how it incorporates, like, these choral, almost, like, royal-sounding motifs into the tracks, especially when Cure Finale comes out. But otherwise, it's pretty lively and energetic and fun. I also do wish the cinematography had been a little bit more ambitious. There are a few good shots here and there. Like, if there's nothing incompetent about it by any means, like, there's really nothing bad looking about the series except when the animation gets a little more inconsistent. But it doesn't really shoot for it like, say, Star Twinkle does. Star Twinkle had some incredible cinematography in it. Probably the best cinematography from a Precure series that I've seen. But, yeah, it could have used a little more oomph there. But you know what? The story and the characters, the thematic ideas behind this, for as inconsistent as this series could be sometimes the episodic stuff doesn't quite hit. But overall, the impression that this series left on me was so incredibly strong because of the way it really honed in on, like, what food means to people. Like, going back to that first episode, the first episode of this Delicious Party is basically that one scene from Ratatouille where the critic guy gets taken back to that Ratatouille dish that he ate in his youth and what that means to him. And that idea gets expounded upon throughout the whole series in really interesting ways. This is also I guess my two, like, critiques, I guess, of the show is, the show has a narrator that it did not need at all. The narrator does not add anything. And then, like, halfway through the series, or even, like, 2/3 through the series, they kind of just drop on you, oh, the narrator is Yui's grandma, who had passed away, which was weird. Like, there's never, like, a big reveal. It's kind of just, like, the dialogue just suddenly makes you go, oh, this is definitely Yui's grandma talking. That's weird. Okay. I could have done without the narrator. And the climax to this one is pretty long. Like, the final fight-ish stuff is pretty long. Like the last 6 episodes are all plot. Like like it's 5 episodes of the build up to end final battle, and then the last episode is the epilogue. It could have been shortened by maybe 1 episode, but also they do so much in it that I thought it was, I don't know what I would cut. Oh, and I forgot to mention Takumi, who is like Yui's friend and is totally in love with Yui, which romance doesn't get brought up, at least from what I've seen from Precure so far in like these more newer Precure series. Romance doesn't come up that often. Like there's the end of Hugto Precure, which had some implications. And then I feel like there was another one. I can't name it off the top of my head. But yeah, it was interesting to see that, and he gets to basically be the Tuxedo Mask of this series, as like he is Black Pepper. It was so fun. It was really fun that this series got a Tuxedo Mask character. That was fun. But yeah, where would I see? I would put this right at Tropical Rouge level, but for different reasons. I don't know. Because, like, Tropical Rouge was just way more consistent episode to episode, but the, like, thematic peaks weren't as high. The character peaks were almost as high, but not quite there. Delicious Party was way more inconsistent, but it had way more peaks that I think I'm going to remember for a lot longer than Tropical Rouge, but, I mean, we'll see, I guess. So, I don't think this is... Do I like this better than Hugto? It's been 5 years since I've seen Hugto, so I don't know. I'm gonna say... I don't think I like this better than Hugto. So, I'm gonna say... Well, we're about to go to the... We'll talk about Precure rankings in another video, but for now, we need to get over to the list, because I've been talking for way too long.
Alright, Delicious Party Precure is done. We're going to scroll up to here. We're going to put it in between these two here. And you get a strong 7. For reference, I put this like literally just above Tropical Rouge in my master list of anime here. See, like we got Tropical Rouge and then Delicious Party here. So it's a real strong 7, and then you can see like I have Hugto right here as a light 8. So, and then way further up the list is Star Twinkle Precure. So, yes, this is now my Delicious Party is now my 3rd favorite Precure series. It was very fun.